Hi, everybody. We are studying lesson 5 today for the Hebrew from day one. We will learn the rest of the letters that it takes for us to be able to read day one. And I'm going to share the screen because I have some exciting news for you about our website. So I'm going to come here and I'm going to share this with you. This is the Hebrew page for, I'm making sure I can see everybody. That's better. I can see everybody now. This is the Hebrew page that is hidden. Only you can see it. And I wanted to show you this part that shows here in the red. That's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to show you that. I meant to show you that. I wanted to click on this, and now that showed up. So I'm going to show you my bouncy ball thing. You see this red part here? So normally you can find, I found the alphabet Google Slides for you here, but normally you can find your lesson and I show you a colorful version of what the new letters are. For this one, I didn't do the colorful letters because instead I would love for you to go here on the red, in the red. I want you to go to the newly designed Hebrew from day one page, which you can also go to if you just go to regular Hebrew doc, and then you click over here from Hebrew from day one. If you come there, I spent a long time working on this page so that it works. I'm showing it to you larger than normal here, so that it works better. It's easier to read everything, and I'm not finished. I've got a couple of other ideas of how to make it more user-friendly, but if you wanted to be using this and you don't have me in the middle of the thing, it's a little bit easier now. So if we were starting with the alphabet, you've got the alphabet charts and songs and all of that. Next part is vowels, including Quizlets. And we still haven't resolved the Quizlet question about whether or not everybody who clicks on it has to pay, because no one should have to pay. And I haven't gotten feedback yet about that. But then what happens is each lesson is a little bit easier to see, and we don't have all of the same stuff that we had before. And what by the way, I'm going to, or maybe I think I can. I think I can. No, I can't. Okay. Once we get through lesson 3, then we get the halfway done fun stuff. We've got the other alphabets. And you can print other alphabet songs. You can sing other alphabet songs. We did lesson 4 already though, and we do lesson 5. There's one thing that's still missing from all of this, and that was the ayin still doesn't have a video, and I don't know why, but I'm working on it. I'll get it done. But you already know the ayin. So we're doing lesson 5, and then after lesson 5, we will have some very cool things. So let's get through lesson 5 because I have some really fun stuff I want to do for you. But the letters that we're supposed to learn, look at this chart. I'm going to share this with you. This is really fun. I use this as my cheat sheet. This shows what we do each lesson. So lesson 1 was this, lesson 2, lesson 3, lesson 4, lesson 5. And then next time you're supposed to learn all of those. And take that out of the way, but you can see, oh, if I can take it out of the way. The top is in this screen instead. But I wanted to show it to you because I rely on that sometimes to know what I'm supposed to be teaching. So we're going to jump to the print the chapter, which is this thing over here. And this is the most exciting thing. And that is that if you look at these lines here, from here all the way to here, you're going to be able to read all of that by the time today is over. In fact, you can read all of day 1 except for these little black things in here. Those are the only things that you can't do as of now. We're teaching those today. That's a lot of Hebrew. You can do just about everything that we throw in front of you. You have very few letters that you don't know right now. We can look at what you all, well, let's not do that today. Let's go directly to the letters because I have a whole bunch of fun practice things I want to do. So the first letter we're teaching is this one. I want you to take the palm of your hand. I want you to curve it like this. Palm of your hand and curve it. This thing, the palm of your hand, is called a kaf. A spoon, like a tablespoon, is called a kaf. A teaspoon, a little spoon, is called a kapit, by the way, but this is a kaf. And I want you to imagine that you have and pretend. Now, I will never suggest this in person anymore. We used to do this. We shouldn't do this anymore. If you had a cough, you might go like this. Cover your hand with your cough. You shouldn't. You should always use the inside of your elbow. That's beside the point. But your curved hand is a cough, but you are trying, if you look here, you'll see that there's a cough drop in the middle of this palm. So I'm going to draw it for you. Hopefully you're practicing drawing also. First, we make our little square. So you see approximately how big this is. I'm going to hopefully remember how to do a block. Oh, that's not very square, but that's okay. You'll get the idea. I'm hopefully going to remember to do a block letter for you and a cursive letter for you with my delightful mouse here. So the block letter looks something like this. You're going to go across the top, you're going to go down the side, and you're going to go across the bottom. It's kind of an open-ended square, but you also have to remember to put the cough drop in. You need the cough drop. If you were doing a cursive, it's going to be a curved one, and then with a cough drop in it. So if you look at, when we go back, I'm going to remind you how to use the page. If I turn it into something other than that, if we go back to the Hebrew from day 1 page, if you click on the cough here, it should take you to, I'm going to take away those pictures to not distract you. It should take you to the cough learning page. So here you have the cough. It tells you its name, tells you that it sounds like a k. It tells you, kind of shows you more or less what remember, this is still, it's still a font. It's not someone who wrote it. So that's a font, and I had to pick a font that kind of sort of looks like handwriting. It represents the number 20, and I remind you that it's curved, like with a cough drop. And if you click on these things, sometimes you have to wait a moment, but if you click on it, it's supposed to do the sound for you. You see the practice?
Okay.
So it may take a hesitant lag. Next time you click on it, it should come right on. It shouldn't lag at all.
Okay.
So those are the Rabbi Jana voice from like 25 years ago when I first recorded the sounds. But it's got all of the things. It's got the show me lesson that shows you how to draw the lessons and things. It's got this lesson. I'm just reminding you that all of this is on there. It shows you it's curved, and it's got the practice things if you want to have a carry around version with you. And then the flashcards that if you print this side, you've got the big versions with every letter. Oh, that does not look good. What happened there? That shouldn't be like that, should it? No, nobody told me that. And then the English side, that should not be messed up. That should be fine, right? Yeah, that worked out fine. It should have looked like this. I don't know what happened there. When you turned it into a PDF and posted it, didn't work. We'll have to try to remember that. I'll go through and look at them. But anyway, this is the English side, and it's got the lines on it so that if you print them double-sided or back-to-back, however you have to do that, then you will have flashcards to use of every single consonant with every single letter. And let me just tell you, that's a lot of flashcards, hundreds, if you did them all. Just reminding you that this is one way of learning it. Okay, cough drop. So I have a feeling that if we did the ka kiki cuckoo stuff, first of all, it would make me say bad words, and I don't want to do that. So, because everybody's going to giggle. But I wanted to show you this. This is the word that we're going to be reading in the text. It looks like this big thing here. And make it come down here. The curved cough with the E vowel is ki. Ki in modern Hebrew always means because, but in biblical Hebrew, sometimes it's going to mean that. We'll translate it like that, and you'll see it when we get to the actual text. All right, this word I love because it happens a lot in the Torah, and there's even a lot of prayers that you know, even prayers that come from Torah that you know that use this word. Let's try sounding it out. We have a curved with a cough drop, cough, and this, you notice at the bottom is longer because on my word processor I could do that. So it's a O, the saddest, most misunderstood vowel. And then the tall letter lamed. And it rhymes with all. That's how I was taught. So it's kol, means all or every, or all of something, kol. It's going to happen. You're going to see that word a lot, kol. Call is all or every. This is the word that I was thinking about because there's a guy named Kalev who's spelled just like this, but we have to change his vowels. So there's a guy named Kalev, which is this vowel, these two vowels. His name is Kalev, and he went to let the dog in or out or whatever it was. And it's the same word. The word Kelev is the same letters as Kalev or Caleb. Kalev, which means something like sincere, like a heart. Lev is a heart. Kalev is like a heart. It's just funny why you decided to be named a dog. That's why. Why does someone name you a dog, Caleb? That's what we want to know. Kalev. It's a good name, actually. It means sincere, like a dog. I've never had a dog lie to me, ever.
No.
Right? All right. So this word is, you have a curved cough with a and a vet, because there's nothing inside, there's void inside, and an ah, that one's the short one. That's a regular, it's not a short, it's a regular shaped ah, like this, ah, and then the rounded resh, kvar, kvar. He already let the dogs in, kvar. He already let the dogs out, kvar. He already, kvar. So that's all on there. You can print this. Remember, this is the text and it's printable from here. That's the kaf. Questions about the kaf? No, of course not. You got this. This letter is one that people seemed to tend to forget. Now, do you appreciate being able to see it from here, or do you want to see it on the learning page? Let's try your learning page this time, just for this part. Let's try it. We'll get down to the practice reading. We'll go to the other one again. So I'm going to draw my little boxes, make my little yellow boxes so that you can see what it looks like. This is for my block and this is for my cursive. We'll put one on one side and one on the other side. And then we're going to change the color and then we're going to change the shape. So this one, for some reason, people forget. This is the reason, this letter is the reason why I make people write these letters out to learn them. When I learned how to read Hebrew, I did not learn how to write them. If your primary purpose is reading prayer book Hebrew, reading biblical Hebrew, you may never have to write a letter ever in your whole life. When I learned Hebrew, I learned cursive only for writing, and I learned reading, that was prayer book reading, and I never learned block. And it wasn't until many years later when I was teaching a class that of sixth graders that I needed, that school made everybody learn how to write the block. But this particular letter gets confused with other letters sometimes. And because of that, I make you have to write it. Because when you write it, you can never see them as the same as the other one. And I'll show you what I'm talking about. So we're going to start here, kind of in the middle of the box. We're going to go to the top corner. We're going to go down the side and up. It's supposed to be in the box. Let's see if we take away that part. Let's try this again. In the box, kind of to the corner. We're going down one side and we're going up one side, and that's better. Pretend the lines are straight. I guess this one's making it a little rounder, but it looks like that-ish, I guess, kind of. Not exactly. And then the cursive is really fun because the cursive, you start over here and you just do a big swoop. You're supposed to go to the bottom. Now a big swoop. Bottom of your square. Swoop, swoop.
Almost
swoop.
like a...
Yeah, it's like things. Swoop, swoop. It can go a little bit higher than the top, but it's a swoop, swoop. It's kind of fun. And that's a tet. And the reason why I make you draw it is because I like you to see what I like to call the tear at the top tet. You'll notice that the top part here is open. The other letter that most people confuse this with is not open on the top. There's a tear at the top. I like to see not only the tear at the top, but I also always imagine this with a drip. Beep, that's my water drop, that it's dripping. The word for a drip in Hebrew is tipa. And I always see tipa. And I see the drip coming off of this thing, tipa. And it reminds me of the drip irrigation system that exists in Israel, where you have these hoses and the hoses are specially spaced with holes in them, especially spaced holes to drip, to be able to water the desert. watch yesterday's show. I do a whole description of it in pictures and everything. But that system is called the Taftufot system. Lots of water drops. And this reminds me of watering systems, which may be ironic now that I think about it, the drip system, because I'm going to try to bring this over again. And I probably shouldn't do this to you, but I'm going to do it briefly. So this is the letter tet with my Taftufot system. That's the letter tet. I'm going to show this to you, and I'm almost sorry that I'm doing it, but people think that it looks like this letter. I want you to look at them. I want you to notice that one of them has a tear at the top. It's open on the top. The other one has a bottom missing. I'm intentional about the mnemonic devices that I give you. They shouldn't look at all alike, but some people confuse those two. The tear at the top tet with a missile mountain mem. So the tear at the top tet has the top part is missing. It's the top is missing. It's a t. And this one, the bottom is missing. There's no tear at the top at all. So the fact that you can write a tet means that it shouldn't confuse you at all. You should be able to survive this and not forget it, except that I'm not going to lie to you. It turns out that for almost everybody that you'll ever meet, for some reason, the tet is one of the last letters that they ever learn how to read. So wiggle, there you go, somewhere else. Okay, now there's nothing there. That's not helpful. I need something here. There you go. Okay, so the tet, if we were going to, now look how fancy that one is. That's what it looks like in a whatever that generic Windows font is. That's a fancy old font. That's how I learned too. See the serif over here? That's just cool. But it still has a tear at the top. So you're going to see the ta, te, t. Well, I'm not going to keep going because I'll say something that'll embarrass me. But I want to point out something that that we didn't yet ask. Why do we have two T sounds in Hebrew? You already learned the tav. Why do we need another T sound? I'm glad you asked that. The answer is we don't, and they don't sound the same. So the tav, I want you to, or let's put it this way. You can make them sound exactly the same and no one will laugh at you. If you have a T sound in your mouth and it always comes out the same way, use that T, no problem. No one will laugh at you. No one's going to say, oh, you must be American. They're not going to do that at you at all. Not for this one. But I'm going to tell you the difference between the two sounds. The tav, which looks like that, well, I should probably show it to you on this thing again, instead of trying to confuse you. The tav we learned in the first lesson. The tav looks like this. Remember, it's attached to the top with the tear toe at the bottom left. That's the tav. So take your tongue and kind of push it up against the roof of your mouth. Tuh. You're going to splat your tongue behind your teeth and it's going to be flat like this. Tuh. There's going to be a lot of tongue behind your teeth. The tet, which is the one over here, I like to think of that as daintier. You're going to take just the tip of your tongue and you're going to put it behind your teeth, as opposed to. If you can't hear the difference between those two, don't worry about it. Like I said, if you've got a T sound at all. But when people say, why would we have two different T sounds? We do not. There are a few sounds on here that you may look at and you may have learned them and may have thought that they were the same. So you get, for example, the aleph and the ayin, not the same. This is a, and this is a, and this one is, we've got the vav, the very narrow, very straight vav, and we learn that with the vet, and they don't sound the same. One is a v and one is a v, and they're not the same. We're going to learn more next week that are not the same. So that look like they might be the same sound, but they're not. All right, so you've got that, and what we want to do now is practice that letter by coming down to the bottom of this and practicing these words. Tear at the top, tet. All right, this is a word that I've already told you about. You have a t with an e, and then you have a pill in the pe, in the mouth, pill in the pe, and then a with a silent hey. So it's tipa. That's the drip that I was telling you about, the drip that you see inside the tet. Tipa is a drip. I'm a little teapot dripping all over the place. Then you have the word for kitchen. So these two letters are right next to each other. Do they look the same? Can you confuse them at all? No, because Rabbi J said, look, this one has a tear at the top and this one has a bottom missing. You'll never see them looking the same again, ever. So this is Missile Mountain Mem with an E. This is a tear at the top tet with a resting schwa, mit. You have a bar on the bottom, base goes beyond ball in the belly bet with an A, and then a ch, and none of the above. So it's mitbach. Mitbach is a kitchen. A tabach, by the way, is a chef. Mitbach, someone who works in the kitchen. What? Yes, it works like that all the time in Hebrew. This word, tear at the top tet with an A, ayin, which is a silent or a, and an A and a marshmallow mem is ta'am. Ta'am. It means taste. If I want to say something is very tasty, I would say, ooh, that's ta'am tov. It tastes good. And the word tov, by the way, is a word that should have been something that we wrote about here because that's a good one. I think we can do that one. So you have tear at the top tet with an O vowel and a vet. Tov, that means good. Good is a word you need to know, tov. Tov means good. And you're going to get that in today's Torah portion. It's in the first day of creation story. We're going to see that. If I show it to you, we can show it to you from here. Let's go here. And let's make this be, come on. Nope, go back to, why are we not seeing a reset on here? Okay, we don't need it. I could trick it anyway. So we have already read through everything to there. Here's number 5. So that we said at the end, Vayar Elohim, Vayar Elohim et haor, and God saw the light. And the very next thing that we say is ki tov, because it's good, or that it's good. A lot of times I'll translate it as that it's good. So I'm going to make this bigger so you can see those letters. Ki tov, that it's good. Ki tov, it's good. Tov is good. That's a good word for you to know. And we can't do the next word until we learn the next letter. Next letter. This one I love talking about. This one is supposed to remind us of a door because it's named Dalet. Is like a door. I got to make myself a little box here. A little box. I'm going to show you what the box looks like for the letter. It's easier if I do it like this. And I want to show you that this box has a little dingle dangle doohickey right here. That part just dingle dangles right off of there. So if I'm drawing the dingle dangle doohickey Dalet, it's going to be something like this. So you already know where it is in the box. It fills up the whole box. Make it straight, make it straight. So that's the Dalet. Dalet, oh goodness gracious, mouse, do this nice. Dalet. The cursive Dalet is really fun. The cursive Dalet takes up a box and it's going to be squiggle, squiggle. It goes down to the bottom. Squiggle, squiggle, and go down to the bottom. And if I were writing in a box, it would be squiggle, squiggle, and down to the bottom. Not to be confused with the tzadi, which we already saw, which was squiggle, squiggle, and keeps going around. That's a tzadi. This is going straight. Sometimes it goes straight down like this, and sometimes it goes a little bit of curve here, but it doesn't come all the way up like that. That's a tzadi. That's not a Dalet. You know, I just redesigned that page, and I remembered that somewhere along the line, I have practice writing pages. I'm going to add that to that website. Get ready for this because I already have them. They already exist. They were in the printout of the book and I thought I had the whole book online, but I don't think I do. So I'm going to put those as part of, I got to remember to add them to it. In a worst case scenario, I'll add it all as one big happy thing, but otherwise I'll add them where they belong. All right, so that's the, so, oh, I was supposed to show you. If you put a little doorknob here, now it's a Dalet, it's a door. And it looks like it's on a hinge. And you'll notice if you look at the name and the way the name is written here, that it's a Dalet, that sometimes you are going to see a little doorknob in there. It's not going to change the pronunciation at all. Once upon a time, this was part of the same group of letters where you have like the bet and the vet and the kaf and the chaf and the pei and the fei, where there's a version with a dot that changes the sound. It used to be that with a dot, it sounded like duh, and without a dot, it sounded like the, but it doesn't do that anymore. There's no, there may be a language, it's not anything you have to worry about. Nothing you have to worry about. Just always duh, but know that you're going to see it with a dot in it, the dagesh a lot. All right, let's do this. This word is the word that means word in Hebrew. You have the dingle dangle doohickey. You have an ah underneath under the da. You have a vet with an ah and a rounded resh. It's davar. So most of the time, the multisyllable word is going to have the accent at the end of the word, and that one it does. Davar is a word. It also means a thing. We've already talked about the word for door. The word in Hebrew for door sounds a lot like the name Dalet, because the pictogram looked a lot like a Dalet. Dalet, same consonants, Dalet, different vowels. And we've talked before about if you've got two e's together, the words, the accent's on the first e, Dalet. So we have door, Dalet. Then we have this word. We do this one a lot at Passover. We do avadim hayinu hayinu ata b'nei chorin. We were slaves and now we're free. So this is remember, when you see one of these, it is a moving shva, which kind of doesn't matter because the part that matters is that you're supposed to pronounce it like an ah. All we're trying to do here is read. We're not trying to figure out why it did what it did. This is ah, this is va, and this is dim, avadim, avadim, slaves or servants. Hopefully you can sound it out. You don't have to learn the vocabulary. You just have to be able to read these words. All right, we have another, it's not the last of our finals, but it is another final letter. So I'm going to show you, if I were to make a box around this final letter to show you how big the final letter is supposed to be, it's going to be something like this. It only takes up about half of a box, and it goes below the line. And that's important. It looks a lot like the narrow nose nun. Well, this is a box. I can't do that. I'm in box form. I can't draw a knot box with that. I gotta turn it into a line. So a narrow nose nun looked like this, and it was a narrow letter, had nostril on it. And the final nun version looks like the top, but it goes below the line. I always like to say that other than the marshmallow mem, all of the other final letters look like they took the bottom that was on the line and just dropped it down below the line. So that's the final nun, a nun sofit, a final nun. And you will only see it at the end of a word. It has the same numeric value as a nun, which we're not worrying about. Oh, and wait, I forgot to show you. So the cursive nun looks like this. So if the block nun looks like this, it's narrow and it goes below the line. The cursive nun doesn't even have this little dingle thing here. It's just goes straight down, just a line that goes straight down and goes below the line. There's your line. It goes below the line. So it's a final nun, and it's just a straight line. And we practice reading some things at the end of the word. So even when I practice like this, I have a consonant, the silent consonant with a vowel, and let it end a word sound. It looks like it's ending pretend words, but let's just look at some real words and practice. Make this bigger. So, whoa, that's smaller. Let's make it bigger so you can see this better. So the word for yes is, according to what I'm going to teach you, is can. But I was taught that it was cane, but it's can. So ken or cane. When you ask if you ask someone who's a modern Hebrew speaker, how do you say yes? They'll say ken, like the name of the doll. I thought that it was Cain, like Cain and Abel kind of Cain, although that's not. Cain's name is Cain, so don't ask me why Cain turns into Cain. But in English, we called him Cain. But or a sugar cane. Let's go to that. That's how I was taught to pronounce it. But in modern Israeli pronunciation, it would be Ken. But you're sometimes going to hear me say Cain because I can't get it out of my system. Ken, yes. And then we have this word, which means, oh, come on. If I do it like this, will you move over just to where I want you to? Okay. There isn't or there aren't is this word here. It starts with an aleph, which is silent, essentially. And then you have the eh with the yud. When I have an eh with a yud, then it always is a. So that's a and a final nun, ain. Ain means there isn't or there aren't. You may know the prayer, Ein Kelohenu, Ein Kadonenu, Ein Kemalkenu, Ein Kemoshienu. I'm going to tell you a secret. You could read all of those words right now. Now you can read them all, but Ein means there isn't or there aren't. Like Ein Kelohenu means there's none like our God. Ka means like. Elohe means God of. Nu means us. There's none like our God. Ein Kelohenu. You can read all of that. That's part of what I was going to do today, was kind of surprise you and let you read some stuff that you already know. Because the best way to learn how to read is to read something that you already know. This is something you already know. It's the name of the letter that this starts with. And it's how you say I. And this is ayin. Ayin. Are you raising your hand? Nope, you're turning on your light. Ayin. You're raising your hand. Go for it. Yes, it is. It's the end of Van Emar. Ain Ode. Marla.
I was sitting here because I'm really trying to teach myself that the two dots next to each other is not a, that it's F. But so that means if I'm understanding it correctly, if it's the two dots and it has a yud next to the aleph, then it's pronounced like an A?
Well, it's not next to the aleph, but anytime we looked at that as a diphthong, that this is, let's just imagine this is eh. Let's just pretend this is eh, not the aleph. The aleph is irrelevant here. If this is eh and there's a yud afterwards, then it's a. That's always a. Eh with a yud afterwards. If that yud is part of the vowel, that's always a. Like
so that's the only way they get the sound A.
That's how you get
into turn the eh.
You have to add something to the eh. And we saw it in two ways in our text. Let me show you. In our text, we saw it two ways. And if, like I said, it's not going to embarrass anybody if you pronounce it as an A. People will understand. So in Bereshit, the eh here has an aleph that makes this a longer vowel. And I don't know anyone who pronounces that Bereshit. I know everybody pronounces it Bereshit. So Bereshit. And then when we say, let's see if we have one in here. I don't know that we have one in here, but we, like I said, with Elohenu, that's one where, well, here, no, so we do have it here. Take a look. This word here, this is Bain, which means between. Bain haor, between the light. Uvein, there it is again, hachoshech. But this one, I would say va yav del, and I would make it del and not dale. Vayav del Elohim Bain haor uvein hachoshech. And God separated between the darkness and the light. What the heck? How do you separate between darkness and light? That doesn't make sense. But it happens, and it blows my mind. I love reading about day one of the Torah because it blows my mind every time I read it. All right, I think we only have one more letter now that I'm looking at this. And it's the same, it's a sound that you've already had. So let's do it like this. Let's just show you. It's this letter here. And that one, if I were to draw a box around it, this one is unusual because this is the only letter that is not a final letter. There are 5 final letters. 4 of them go below the line. The marshmallow mem does not go below the line. Marshmallow mem is right here. It does not go below the line. Here's a final chaf, it goes below the line. The final nun goes below the line. The final tzadi, which we learned, goes below the line. It's up here somewhere under aretz. And we have one more to learn next week. Don't ask me. It blows my mind that we don't. Well, no, it doesn't. Final fe we don't have, but the final tzadi, that's final fe doesn't happen very often. But this is a letter that is not a final letter, but it still goes below the line. You can see it clearly when you're seeing it in a word that it goes below the line. I would love for you to take that letter and I would love for you to just rotate it a little bit and make it look like a Q. Are you raising your hand? Okay, ready, go. Ask your question.
How come goes below the line and it's a final something, but it's at the beginning of the word?
That's what I'm trying to say. I'm glad you asked that. So every other letter that goes below the line is a final letter, but this is the only letter that goes below the line and is not a final letter. It is a kuf. So we have already learned the final nun. Now we just learned that. We learned the final chaf. That goes below, that's very low below the line. We learned the final tzadi. That goes below the line. We're also going to have a final fe that goes below the line, which we didn't learn yet. These are final letters and they go below the line. This letter that we're learning now goes below the line, but it is not a final letter. It is in the same place. It's shaped the same wherever it is in a word, even at the end position, even the beginning position, and it goes below the line. So that's a kuf.
Called a final.
This one isn't called a final. This is called a kuf. We learned the final nun. That one is a final. But this is just called a kuf. It's not called a final kuf. That's the thing.
Okay.
I like to think of this one as, I like to think of it either as, imagine it as a Q. You have to see it because I'm making you see it. See the Q. Because it sounds more like a Q than it sounds like a kaf sounds like a K, but a kuf sounds like a Q. You can make them both sound like K if you want to. But I want you to think about the difference between when you say king and you say queen. Try to say king and try to say queen, and you'll see that that first consonant comes from a different place in your mouth. King, queen, king, queen. And you'll see that the Q comes from farther back in your mouth. That's the sound that the kuf is supposed to make. A cursive one looks almost, oh, come on, you could go straight down. What the heck? I can't, I did that one. Oh my goodness gracious. Can't go straight down. This is a kuf. And go straight down. Shoop, straight down and below the line. And a cursive one is just a round thing and it's going to be like that. And usually it does come over here. Kuf. Sounds like ku, but it's a Q, but not a QU. It's not qua. It's just instead of it's. Don't worry about it if they're all the same k when you're using them in real life. Nobody's going to make fun of you, I promise, on these. And that's the last letter. I would like us to practice reading the kuf letters. And then, oh, and here's a cool thing. Actually, I love this. Somebody, so the kids come up with these great mnemonic devices sometimes. Some of them I can't let you use because they don't sound anything like the letter. But what if I told you that this one looks a little bit like a key? Can you see it? It's a key. It sounds like a k. It doesn't sound like a q, but it's okay. If you say it like a k, I'll let you get away with that one. So that was a little bit helpful. All right, let's do these. Let's go. We'll go backwards. It's not my favorite word to use, but this is the word that means a grave. And it's, you see the two s, so the accent's going to be on the first syllable. It's kever. Kever is a grave. Kever. This word you probably already know. It means holy. Kadosh. Kadosh, 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 Adonai Tzevaot. Or you've heard it in Mikadesh. You talk about what holy means, but it starts with a kuf, kadosh. This one means a voice or a sound, We just saw the word call, which means all or every. This one is call, which means voice or sound. You may have heard the expression call shofar, the voice of a shofar. We talk about seeing the call, seeing God's call, God's voice, when we were at Mount Sinai, that the voice was so big that we could see it, and it was so overpowering that we said, Moses, you deal with that call, we can't do it. But you also may have heard of the expression about kol isha, that a woman's voice is very distracting to men. I'm embarrassed for men, but that's what it is. They'll call it kol isha, and they'll use that as an excuse for a whole lot of things. And the they is not anybody here. So I would like to come out of the lesson. That's all of this. And I would like to come to this, and I would like to show you some cool things that are on here. I have this, which is the vowels and trope of all of day one. I also have the same one with vowels and no trope. And I also have it with, that looks like it's from the Torah, and I also have the Torah, and I'd like to show you all of that today. But we're going to start with this one with no trope, nothing there to confuse you, just these teeny letters show you that you're at chapter 1, verse 1. This is verse 1. Aleph is a 1. Every Torah, every Chumash, which is a Pentateuch, the Torah book that you're going to find, it should have a bigger bet than the rest of the letters. Remember, there's no such thing as a capital letter in Hebrew, but you will still see a bigger bet at the very beginning of the Torah. So that is still reflected here. There isn't a bigger letter at the beginning of all the other books of the Torah. So we got to figure out why this one is bigger. But for now, we're just going to accept it, and we're going to try to read it. And most of these you probably almost remember by heart. Bereshit bara Elohim et ha-shamayim ve'et haaretz. Ve'haaretz hayata tohu va-vohu. Let me know if you've got problems. Say something if you got a problem with any of this. You got a question. V'choshech. And in this one, I want to point out the choshech, the O dot is what I call a double duty dot. That the O dot for the chet is also the shin dot for the shin. V'choshech al panei tehom. It's a very deep word. And then it says Viruach, and this is a tricky one. It's called a furtive patak, which means a sneaky patak. Viruach.
Spirit.
Sorry?
I said spirit.
Ruach is spirit or breath or wind, exactly. Elohim. Me ra che fet. Al Pene Hamayim. So we could have been translating as we go. Bereshit, bara Elohim. In the beginning, God created. Et Hashamayim, the skies, the et haaretz, and the land. Vehaaretz, and the land. Hayata, she was. Tohu vavohu, she was void and unformed. V'choshech, and darkness, al panei, on the face of, tohu. There's another A for you. V'ruach, and the spirit or the wind, Elohim of God, mirachefet. Now this is a cool word because it looks like present tense, but there's no such thing as present tense in Torah Hebrew. So it is actually a continuing action. It doesn't happen very often that we use this verb form, but it means it was and is and always will be hovering. And it's feminine. So it means that we've decided that this ruach is feminine. The word, the breath or the spirit of God is feminine, because this word ruach can be masculine. But when God told the story, God decided that God wanted to tell it as a feminine spirit. Al panei, on the face of, same word as here, al panei. Hamayim, the waters. Vayomer Elohim, and God said, be light. Vayhi or, and light was. Vayhi or. Vayar, and you'll notice that the word for saw has the same letters as light in it. They're in a different order, but that sometimes happens a lot in Hebrew poetry. Vayar Elohim, and God saw et haor, the light, ki tov, because it's good. It's good to have light, to be able to see something. No, that it is good because it's good, that it's good. And here comes the part, one of the parts that blow my mind. Vayavdel, and God separated, distinguished, like separated out, like Havdalah, when you separate the holy from the rest of the week, or the sacred from the profane, or the weekdays from the holy day. Vayavdel Elohim, and God separated Bein Haor, between the light, Uvein, and between. What happened to that dot in there? Well, it came after an U. Uvein hachoshech, and between the darkness came between. So God separated between the light and between the darkness. When you say that you separate between things, then you're going to have two banes on there. There's going to have to be a bane in front of the one thing that's being separated and a bane between the other thing. Not separated, but when you can use bane and say, like, I walked among the people, and then I would say bane, and I'd only say it one time. If I want to say that it was like between a rock and a hard place, I'd have to say it's bein harak uvein hahard place. I have to say it that way, and I'd use real Hebrew. And then we say vayikra Elohim, and God called laor, to the light, yom. Everybody say that word for me. Say yom. Yom. Yom is the word for day. And it is a word that any baby, any infant can say, because it's using lips and mama, yom, mama. Yom is a suckling sound. We're watching a baby here. V'lachoshech, and to the darkness, kara, he called Laila, say Laila. That's what God called the night part, Laila. So Yom and Laila, those are suckling sounds. If we continued, we would see that every day God would be creating things, and the words would get more and more sophisticated, just like every baby's sound potential can get. Vayihi erev, and there was evening. Vayihi voker, and there was morning. Yom echad, one day, day one. It doesn't say first day, it says one day, day one. So that's the version that we do with no trope. And then I'm going to show it to you again with the trope, because the trope helps us do some things. The trope will tell us where the accented syllable is if we're trying to read, and it's only in Torah, in Tanakh. You're not going to see it in, on cereal boxes or anything like that. It's not going to be that kind of helpful. But the trope tells us where the accented syllable is. It tells us how to keep things together in phrases, and it will also tell us a melody. Every time you see this pattern, it's going to have the same exact melody. Every time you see this, and then this, and then this, and then this, it's going to have the same melody. So it goes like this. Bereshit bara Elohim et hashamayim ve'et haaretz. Ve'haaretz, dramatic pause, hayata tohu vavohu. V'choshech al panei tahom. We had a dramatic pause here. Al panei tahom. And that thing that looks like a wishbone is going to be the middle of a sentence. You're going to find that the first half of the sentence and the second half of the sentence weigh the same. It may be that one half is really short and the other half is really long. It's not about syllables. It's not about sounds. It's going to be usually a conceptual half, and they're going to weigh the same. V'ruach Elohim mirachefet al panei hamayim. Vayomer Elohim yehi or. Vayhi or. Vayar Elohim et haor ki tov. Vayavdel Elohim ben haor uven hachoshech. Vayikra Elohim laor yom velachoshech kara laila. Vayhi erev, vayhi voker, yom echad. There was evening and there was morning one day. I want to point this thing to you because I did a sermon this year where I used insights from the first day of creation, from what I've been accumulating from teaching this class so many times. And it's all in here, so you can look at it and see it. But I want to show you this because this is so cool. This is what it looks like in my favorite Torah scroll at B'nai Zion. And I should have had this on all the time. How come Marla didn't remind me? Look at what this sofer, look what they did. First of all, this is the first letter, and notice how it's bigger. Notice that there are some, they're called tagim, these hooks that are on letters. Notice that there are also some strange shapes, like a chet is like two Zions with a little bridge on top. It will always look like that. There are other letters that are made up of different parts, like a hey looks like a dalet with a yud. And they're intentionally like that. And every Torah scroll you look at is going to look like that. And that it's there for all kinds of mystical reasons and other reasons. And we could, one day we should like look at all of those secrets to the mystical letters and things. And I will answer that. I see that, Carol, and I'll be right at you. But I wanted to show you this. So some letters are allowed to have tagim. The other thing I want to show you is this. So we're supposed to be what we now learn to call flush right and flush left. If you look really carefully, let me make this really big, you can see lines that they scored. They have a wooden piece that they put score lines in, and then they rub the parchment on the wooden board so that they can see these lines, so they know exactly where to go. And you know that Hebrew, we start at the top of the lines. We don't stop at the bottom, we start at the top, and it comes from heaven and comes down to us. And then there's also a line at the end that they're supposed to keep to. So there's a line at the beginning and a line at the end, and they're supposed to be able to keep it straight, flush right, flush left. But what happens when you get to the end and you're writing nicely and neatly, and all of a sudden you realize, well, I don't have enough room for another word here. So they're allowed to widen some letters, only certain letters. So you'll see, for example, we take this word and he couldn't widen the aleph and he couldn't widen the mem, but he could widen the resh. And that way he could be flushed there. A really good sofer, I'm told, won't ever have to widen a letter because you know exactly how many letters you're going to be writing. You know exactly how wide each letter is, and you should be able to judge. I'm not complaining. I still love this guy's writing, but I'm just saying that could have been cool. So I want you to notice that you've got your tagim here. When you have a space like between paragraphs, what he does here, go this way, is these cool things where he takes not just the tagim, the three things, but he takes the three tagim and he makes them very fancy. But when he's at the very top where he's got a lot of space, he has three tagim. The three tagim are fancy tagim, and each of the tagim have fancy on them too. Mind is blown. I love this. It's just gorgeous. And I want to show you that even without the vowels, even with as much Hebrew as you now know, even though you're still in kindergarten, you might be able to read some of this. You may be able to read this word. It says Bereshit. Did that surprise you that said Bereshit? No, it shouldn't surprise you. You've heard this over and over again for the last 6 weeks, 5 weeks, 6 weeks. Bereshit bara Elohim et hashamayim ve'et haaretz. So I'm going to, we don't have to read the whole thing. We could, but we don't have to because I want to be finished for our next class. We have about a minute, but we asked the question about, if I answer this, you're not in kindergarten anymore. And that makes me a little bit sad because I kind of like you with kindergarten and your baby teeth and all that stuff. But the question is, why does this, if you have a bane on for one word and a bane on the other word, this one says bane, but this one has no dot in it. And that's because I have to say between this and between this. And when I have an and before a bet, it has to be an u has to come before a bet and not a v, which we saw on other things. That's not a regular v. But the way to normally say, we have no regular v's right here. That's hysterical. right here. This is how we normally say and with a v. Before the bilabials, you can't have it be a v, you have to have it be an u. And after an u, you can't have a dagesh because it's a long vowel. I will teach you all of that in just a few more weeks once you know more words. Right now, you're not supposed to know any words. Right now, you're just supposed to read what's put in front of you. And what got put in front of you is Bein Haor Uvein HaChoshech. You should be able to read that. You may not be able to read it as fast as I can. That's fine. Read it as slowly as you need to. Just read it and appreciate it. And there's the this that I don't know why I put it here, just because it exists already, but all the black things are lesson 1 and all the red things are lesson 2, and it just accumulates with you. So you should, it's just fun. And then there's this one, which is all of Genesis day 1 that you can color in, because sometimes people learn better when they color. I suggest that you do the same coloring that I just did, but you don't have to do that. You could just color however you want. You want to color every bet the same color, whatever is going to work for you, you do that. So that's the end of this lesson. I wanted to tell you that I wanted to show you the new and improved site, and I hope that you use that. I want to remind you that next week is the last week of this class. And after that, we go into another mode. There are 3 different classes that I plan to be teaching. One is Biblical Hebrew, and one is Prayer Book Hebrew, and one is Conversational Hebrew. And we were talking about the fact, yep. You just, excuse me, because you meant, okay. You didn't want to say something. You weren't interrupted.
No, I sneezed.
Okay, and bless you. We all said la briut. What we're hoping to do is have 3 evening classes. I don't know that we need the daytime classes anymore, but by the beginning of March, I will have established a schedule of all of these classes, okay? And as you know, whoever's in the class gets to determine what we do in the class.